G'day everyone, Legion Coding here. Today I'm going to show you how to make this spinner. It uses only HTML and CSS, uses no JavaScript at all. And let me show you how it's done. So I'm going to open up a blank page with nothing in it and a blank document. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create some elements on the page. So I'm going to call it a loading bar, just so we know what it is. And I'm going to add in a span with the text of loading ... So all that's currently showing is this loading ... on the page, which is what's going to go in the center of it. We also want a container for the circle to spin around in. So I'm going to call this one loading circle wrapper. And we also want the circle itself. So I'm going to call this one loading circle. So nothing else really looks any different, it's just mainly the structure of the page. That's literally the entirety of the document for the HTML component. Now we want to add in some styling. So I've already created a file before, just in a folder called CSS and then style.css. And it's just a blank document. So we have to link that. We just link that in the header, making sure we say what folder it's in as well as the file name. So I'm going to change the background of the page just so it looks like our example. I'm using something called linear gradient. Now this allows you to put in a gradient as a background instead of just a single color. Now I'm going to choose some colors which I've already liked before. Oops, I just made a typo there. So background, and you'll see that we have this light blue going from left to a dark blue on the right. I'm going to get rid of any of the padding that's on the page and the margin that's on the page. So you'll see that there's no margins and paddings anymore. And I'm also going to make the font family just a sans serif, which will use the default sans serif that the browser first picks. You can choose any font you like though. And you'll see there that it changes. I'm also going to change the body in the HTML to be a width of 100% and a height of 100% as well. Now this will be for positioning of elements, so the document by default will be 100% high and 100% wide. Now let's start styling the loading bar itself. So loading bar, which is this element here. Sorry, that should be called loading bar. So the loading bar itself, we want to position it into the middle of the page. So we use fixed, so you can position it on top of any elements that are already on the page. We want to be left 50 pixels, 50%, and top 50% as well. Now I'm going to add a background onto this just so we can see what's happening. So it's got this little box around it. Now I'm also going to set the height and the width of this box already. So you'll see that it's not quite centered, but the top left-hand corner of the box is centered. So that's how aligning things in CSS works. So using the left and the top will be from the top left of the element. So we actually want to shift it into the middle of the page. So we use margin left negative 75 pixels because that's half of the width. And margin top negative 75 pixels as well because that's also half the height. And that puts it exactly into the center of the page. I'm going to add in a border as well after I get rid of this background. So let me get rid of the background first. So it looks like it's just floating there, but it's not. So let's add in the border of, I'm just going to make it 6 pixels, solid. So RGBA is just whatever, uses RGB colors. So 255, 255, 255 is a white, and we're making it only 60% transparent. So it's actually a grey. And as you can see, it's got this border around it. And we want it to be a circle, so we'll make it 150 pixel border radius, so therefore it's a complete circle. And I also want to add in box sizing border box. Now what this does is it makes the border part of the height and the width. Whereas previously, if you don't use this, the border is added on top, so it'd be 156 instead on both sides, so an extra 6 pixels on either side. So you refresh and you'll see that it resizes down just a little bit. That's just so we know exactly what we're dealing with. Now we want to center the text on the page. So loading bar span. So we want to center this loading inside of the loading bar wrapper. So to do that, we just go position absolute, display block, because the span by default is an inline element, so we want to convert it into a block. Left 50%, top 50%, and you'll see that it does the same thing as it did with the box before, just the top left corner is centered. So since we don't know the height or the width, we're going to use a different method. So we're going to use translate 3D, negative 50%, negative 50%, and 0. Then I'll put it directly into the center of it. So we're using this because we don't know the height and the width of this element. I'm going to make the color the same as the background, the border color, sorry. So that way it matches the theme. And I'm going to add in a little bit of a text shadow as well. This one's going to be a black text shadow, 20% of a black color, as you can see there. So it has a bit of a shadow on it. I'm also going to add in a box shadow to the loading circle. It's going to be subtle, it's not going to be too pronounced, but just something to add a little bit to it, as you can see it around the outside now. Next step we want to do is work on the spinning components, the actual circle itself. So now we've got a wrapper and we've got a circle. So loading circle wrapper. So this is the wrapper here, and the circle will be inside of the wrapper. So you'll see why we need the wrapper first. So I'm going to make it width of 100%, height of 100% of the container. Position absolute. Top 0 pixels, left 0 pixels, and I'm going to add in a background of black just so we can see. So you see that we have this square that's inside of it. And this is going to be what we're using to spin the circle around, because you can't just have a circle spinning around on its own, because it needs to know the position where it is. So I'm going to add in the loading circle as well now. So we've got the wrapper, and now we're going to add in the circle itself. So I'm only going to make it about 20 pixels wide, 20 pixels high. I'm going to absolute this one as well. So left, now let's think, I'll show you something in a second. So we'll make it left. I'm going to give it a background of red just so you can see what's going on. And I'm also going to make it top 50% as well. So here we have this red circle, red square, sorry. I'm going to convert that into a circle now. Border radius of 20 pixels, so now we have our circle. We want to move it to the left a little bit more. So to do that, we have to make it actually left. Sorry, that was meant to be a negative value, not a positive value. So negative 10 pixels. Because its width is 20, you want it to be halfway on the box here. But since the box isn't quite in line with the border, you have to add in half of the border's width as well. So the border is 6 pixels here. So we want it to add in an extra 3 pixels, because that's half, to make it exactly in the middle of the circle. So this left value here will be negative 13 instead. So that's actually right in the middle of that. And now top 50 is only doing it from the top here. So we actually want to go, we can use this other method, calc, because we don't want to be 50% from the top, minus 10 pixels, which is half of the height, and it puts it directly in the middle. See, that is directly in the middle of that circle, which is exactly what we want. So the next, we're almost there. So there's only a few more steps to go. So we actually want to rotate the wrapper itself around, not the square. So I'll show you. So if you go transform rotate, let's say 30 degrees, for example, you'll see that this square is the one that's rotating the circle. And you'll see that it's still in line with it, because it's always going to be in line. Regardless of what value you give it, that circle is always going to be in the correct position because of this wrapper. If you didn't have this square wrapper, it would always end up in a different position. It won't be on the actual circle itself. Now, I'm going to put it back to where it was. We're going to actually use an animation to do this. So use keyframes for an animation. You can call a keyframe whatever you want. I'm going to call this one circle rotate. I want to start off with 0%, transform, rotate 0 degrees, and I want to set the final value of 100 at 360 degrees. Now it doesn't do anything yet because we haven't assigned it to anything. So we want to assign it to this circle wrapper. I'm going to make it take about 2 seconds, circle, and then you use the name of what you just called it, so circle rotate down here, and I want to do it infinitely. Well, I'll show you what it does if it's not infinite first. So that's all it does when it's one spin. And you see there's not quite, it has a bit of a slow start and a slow finish. So to make it always consistent, you use linear. So that way it's always going to spin at the same speed. And you also want to add it in so that it does it infinitely. So that's when you use infinite. So now you'll see that it's spinning infinitely. Now that we can see that it's the box that's the one that's spinning, we'll get rid of the background so it doesn't look so confusing. And now you see that it's just this circle that's spinning around nicely. I'm just going to add a final touch to it so that the circle itself has a bit of a better color and the background changes color. So you can completely choose whatever you want here. I'm just going to use some colors that I've already chosen previously. I'm going to set a whole bunch of different values, so 25%, 50%. You can choose whatever colors you like, but these are ones that I've already chosen, so. So it doesn't do anything yet because it is not attached to anything. So we want to attach it to the circle this time instead. So we'll make this one last a bit longer, about 4 seconds. I want it to be linear as well. So we'll use the name of it, and I want it to be infinite as well. Add the S onto there. And there you have it. A circle that changes colors as it spins around. So no matter where it is on the page, it'll always be in the center, and it'll always be spinning around. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have anything specific you want me to make for you in the comments below. Please subscribe to my channel. I'll be releasing a lot of content over the coming weeks and months. And thank you for watching.